Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Fireside Creators. I am your hostess, Reverend Dr. Sherry Palace, and this week's topic is what is love? Every time I say that, I hear the Night at the Roxbury song and them banging their heads, but we're going to discuss what is love because there's a lot of misconceptions as well as a lot of ignorance out there. I know I am still learning so much about what love really entails. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. If you are on Facebook, be sure to allow StreamYard your access, your name, so I know who is asking questions or who's making the comments. Remember that this is a safe space, and please keep all of the questions and comments to the topic at hand. There's a lot of different ways that this show keeps going, and one of them is my supporters. I want to thank Ruth, Ray, Michelle, Kirsten, Tim, and Heidi. You guys rock and keep the show going. Thank you so much for your financial contributions as well as your support in so many other ways. I also, if you would like to support the show, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can go to my website, which is sherrypalace.com. You can also go to Cafe Press, where I have these cool designs and then different colors and different fonts and stuff of these different types of designs. There's over 150 different designs up there. So go check them out. I think they're super cool and they're empowering. Some are snarky, of course, but that's kind of me. So thank you so much for your support and just being here, because you being here means I'm not talking to myself, and that's awesome. So we got to keep that going that way. So for tonight's show, we are going to be talking about what love is. And I'd like to introduce the panel. Oops, I removed. There we go. Reverend Michelle is retired but continues to serve by sharing reflections, music, meditations, spiritual counseling, and more with open-hearted, open-minded, inclusive individuals, groups, churches, and centers. She also facilitates rhythm drum circles. Reverend Shell focuses on New Thought teachings and practices universal principles, celebrating everyone as an individualized expression of the one and honoring all paths and people. She identifies as New Thought, practical, positive, Christian, coming from a very diverse background, but is pluralistic in her approach to spirituality. Welcome, Michelle. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing good. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for coming back on. It is always a pleasure to see you.
It is my pleasure.
Next, we have Mike Zenker. If you watch the show, you see his snarky comments in the chat most weeks. Mike became a pastor in 1990 and has been the senior pastor of Hope Fellowship Community Church in Waterloo, Ontario since December of 2003. He launched Growing in Grace Ministries Canada in 2006, which is teaching ministry focused on the identity in Christ and understanding forgiveness. Mike's life has been a journey of unlearning religion and discovering a greater grace. He serves as a fire department, long-term care, and funeral home chaplain, providing hope, love, and light to those enduring hard times. Welcome, Mike.
Hey.
Thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
Background, are you?
What's that?
Starting off being a heckler in the background.
Oh, sure, you can see that?
Oh. Yeah, I could. Luckily, no one else can, though.
Normal's boring. Come on.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for being here. And I want to start off with some clarification. When we are talking tonight, at least from the general perspective, we are talking about love as a generality. We're not necessarily talking about romantic love. And just to set the distinction at this point, the difference between love and romantic love is simply attraction. That attraction adds to physicality, but either way, you're still going to be acting in a loving manner, or you should be. Whether or not there is an attraction or physicality there. So you're still going to possess the qualities and act as if you are loving, even if there is no sex or kissing or anything like that. So the word love should apply to all of those without the physicality. So I just wanted to get that off of as we started off, because a lot of people don't think that you can love without that physical component. And that is just simply not the case in any way, shape, or form.
Well, it is an action word.
Love is a verb. Exactly. Love is a verb.
I can't help but think of,
But
I
not
can't
that
think
kind of action.
Um, I
keep
wanted
thinking
to
of,
say it before Mike did. I knew he would say
what? I keep thinking of Tina
Let's
Turner's
get some
song. What's
action
love
going.
got to do? Got to do
it.
with it.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's banging the heads, all kinds of songs come up. If I played any of them, the whole stream would get shut down, so I can't even
Hey,
do
you
any of
caught my
that.
little Rascals one.
Yeah, it's still copyrighted.
Oh, right. You can't put it on the thing. I know.
Yeah, I can't put it up there. So, Michelle, we were talking before the show about how you have taught congregations on what love is, and the challenges that were posed in doing so. How do you see it? How do you do it? What does it mean to you?
Well, first, to clarify, I didn't really teach them. I reflected
Okay.
on what love meant to me. And the basis of it was Corinthians 13, which was one of the lectionary readings for that week. And when I started out, I asked them if anybody could tell me what love is. And I had complete silence. And then after a few seconds, I was like, okay, this is not a rhetorical question. Can somebody tell me what love is? And a couple people raised their hands or just spoke up. And then I said, okay, can you tell me what love isn't? And then there was all sorts of conversation, like 12 to 15 people, just one after the other. And so I realized that it seems to be easier to describe what love isn't than what it is. And as I reflected more on that after the fact, I thought, well, I guess it's kind of like trying to describe God. No matter what you say, there always ends up being something more. And I think love ends up being like that too. And was reminded of a story that I had heard a few years before that, where the person that was speaking was saying, if you ask a doctor what a heart is, and you ask a poet what a heart is, you're going to get two totally different answers.
Yeah, I
And
like
I
that.
thought that reminds me of the Hindu thing about the five men and the elephant, and how depending on where they went on the elephant, they had different experiences. So I think love ultimately comes down to us defining it by however we've experienced it. But there are four types of love that have um, been written about or in the Bible, and I'm sure other places, but they're eros, which is what you were talking about, where you've got the attraction, the romance, the physicality, and is a more romantic love. And then you've got storge, philia, and agape. And so you've got the love of family, you've got the love of friends or brethren, brothers, neighbors, however you're defining Phila, which is what Philadelphia was named after. And then you've got the agape love that I think we're all, or most of us at least, are striving to have that kind of love, which is the unconditional love of God. And to me, God is love, all encompassing. And so if you say unconditional love, I'm like, well, once you start putting conditions on it, then is it still love, or is it something else that's trying to masquerade as love? So
Yeah.
it's like you can just, you start out with this one point and you just build and you build and you build. And
Well, and I think that one of my regrets growing up evangelical was that I didn't learn more about love. It was all about other things and Bible verses, and I never learned how to love.
They taught you the
Coming
opposite.
from
They
a
taught you
completely
shame.
dysfunctional family, coming from all of those things on top of it. And when I think that while love is something that we are always, every single one of us on this planet is searching for, that unit is can unify us. The dysfunction and our misinterpretations of love actually divide us. Mike, what do you
Well,
think about
that
all this?
and I think
I'm sorry,
also,
go ahead, Michelle.
well, I think it's also that we don't realize that, if we say God is love and we're made in that image and likeness, that means that at the core of our being, we're love too. And so
Yeah.
we have to love ourselves before we can really connect with other people in that kind of love, in that energy. Because the bottom line is, we talk about, is it a noun? Is it a feeling? Is it a verb? It's energy. And whatever you're doing with it, it's taking energy. And so we've got to let out this energy of love that we have within us to other people.
Love without action is just a word. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing behind it. There has to be action behind it. Mike?
Um, I think when we start to look at the definition of what love is, you're not going to find a correct one. In the Greek, I think there's 7 different words for love in Greek. The 4 that you mentioned are the most popular, phileo, like fish, just kidding, and agape. But when we take a look at what agape is, that's going to be the cool part, because I hope at some point in this conversation we can take a look at that text, because I got some juicy stuff for you.
Oh, show it. Show it to us.
Oh, I
Yeah,
can't.
this is a good time.
Yeah.
Fine. So when I do a lot of weddings, I'm doing a lot more lately. Usually the couple likes that love is patient, love is kind text put in. But Sherry, your background and my background, I'm not sure, Michelle, I'm just going to assume yours is probably, you had some Western evangelical, cocktail put in, or not?
Nope.
Then you're lucky.
I've known
so
people.
Lucky. So
I do. I count my blessings for that.
So what we have been told in the West is that love is whatever the Bible says it is, and then that is interpreted only by a few elite people, which control the narrative. And that makes love being behaviors, not action. Okay,
Yeah.
it's not like this. They're not. So I grew up believing if you're going to love someone, you have to do the to-do list. So 1 Corinthians 13 was the to-do list for every married couple. That's it. It's like it has nothing to do with a to-do list. That's like the worst hijack of that text ever. It's actually the get-to list. It's the evidence of what real agape, the DNA energy of love in you, your actual DNA, what it looks like when it's personified and acted out purely. That's what that love is patient, love is kind text is. And I want to read it to you from a translation you have not heard from. I'm going to assume it's a fairly new one. This is called the First Nations version. And the way it's written, oh my goodness, I love it, because it takes all the churchiness out of it. Can I read it to you? Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay. I may have the gift of speaking in both the languages of human beings and of spirit messengers. But if I fail to love, my words become like a screech of a cat or the yelping of a wild dog. I may have the prophetic powers and the ability.
Or the clanging cymbal.
Pardon? What's that?
She said, or a chiming
Said,
cymbal.
or that clanging cymbal or gong.
Yes. Yeah. So this is the First Nations translation of it. So they've made it really cool. I may have the prophetic powers and the ability to see into sacred mysteries and understand all things. I might even have faith strong enough to make mountains move. But if I fail to love, I am nothing. I may give all my possessions to the poor and give my body to be burned as a sacrifice. But if I fail to love, I have gained no honor. Love is patient and kind. Love is never jealous. It does not brag or boast. It is not puffed up or big-headed. Love does not act in shameful ways, nor does it care only about itself. It's not hot-headed, nor does it keep track of wrongs done to it. Ooh, that's a big one. Love is not happy with lies and injustice, but truth makes its heart glad. Love keeps walking even when carrying a heavy load. Love keeps trusting, never loses hope, and stands firm in hard times. The road of love has no end. The time will come when prophets will no longer are no longer needed, when people will stop speaking in unknown languages, and when the need for knowledge will fade away. For we only know some of the story and can only prophesy small parts of it. But the time is coming when we will know the whole story from the beginning to the end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I saw through the eyes of a child. And when I became fully grown, I put my childish ways behind me. Almost done. For now, as if we are looking into a poor reflection in muddy water, but then we will see face to face. For now, my knowledge is full of holes. But when the time comes, I will know the great Spirit as well as I am known by him. But until then, these three remain: faith, hope, and love is the greatest. It's just a different way to say it gently. And there's some other translations that are even better. Passion Translation is amazing. The Message, if you read the Mirror Translation, which is like a huge commentary, but it's showing what love looks like. It's like taking an apple and making apple juice out of it. Whatever comes out, the juice, that is what the apple is, you know? So I think we have some things to learn about love, and we've not done a very good job on it.
Well, and I think that a lot of people confuse love with attachment.
Absolutely.
In my deconstruction, reconstruction, schooling, all of that, I got a lot from the Buddhist lack of attachment, and really that freed my love, because all of a sudden it wasn't about me. My love was about them, their happiness, not what I was going to get out of being loving to them, but what they were going to get out of being. It was no longer, I want you to fit into my life, I need you to do this. It was, how can I provide for you, and to give love as opposed to needing to receive it. When you have that attachment, it becomes almost like the person becomes like a product, or the love is the product. You can take it away, and you can auction it off and use it for blackmail, and none of that is love. People have said to me in conversations, well, I love my gay child so much that I have to disown them because they're going to hell, they need to change their ways. And I'm like, how is that love? How is that love when, is that kind? Is that compassionate? Is
that comes from misunderstanding of who God is, period. That's all that is. And so they're basing their definition on some religious doctrine, not on God. And if they could only see the difference.
Well, and I'm a believer that God is love.
Yeah.
The two are have to be synonymous in any way, shape, or form. But people who don't believe in God can also be completely full of love. God is not required to have love in any way. But I do believe that is the source of this magical, the thing that we all strive for literally from the moment we're born to the second we die.
I think in quantum physics, there's a healthy discussion on what is this dark matter, and there's been some strong insinuation that that dark matter is the love of God. That is the particle is God's love. It's His DNA. His love holds all creation together. And I think if we over-spiritualize the love of God, we're going to lose out on our relationship. Even that idea of attachments, I have a hunch from what I've learned about attachment theory and counseling. People want love, But without the attachment between the couple, or even in friends, that there's a connection, that love has no way to flow. That becomes the wiring to connect. And there's a lot of disconnected people trying to get love from each other, and their wires are crossed. They're not learning. And so I like this other-centered love, this agape, I believe is God. So the other-centeredness, as soon as you're seeking self-centeredness, to me, that's evidence you don't love them. You love yourself. If you want for your own stuff, I need you to do this for me. A good wife does this. A good husband does that. That list is awful.
It's very ego-driven.
Yeah. And even in terms of serving people or being kind to people, you can be kind for all the wrong reasons. You can be kind because that's what you're told you're supposed to do, that you think you're going to get a reward, especially the people that think that they're going to go to heaven because they're being kind. But when you have loving kindness, it takes it to a whole other level that way.
I keep thinking of Eddie Murphy singing this stupid song called "Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places." It's like that's what we've done in religion.
That was a popular country song back in about 1978, 79.
Well, not Eddie Murphy's was Looking for Nub. Yeah, I mean, love is selfless. I mean, a lot of people say, well, I'm in love, but
that's a different love.
You're really in lust.
Yeah. I mean, that's an attraction. That's, when you are walking down the street and you see a homeless person and you stop and acknowledge them and have it, that's love. When you're helping someone in need, that is love. When you are, being that friend who answers the phone when someone needs you, that is love. And none of that has anything to do with any commitments or any relationships. I mean, you can be a loving person to the cashier at the grocery store. In love your neighbor, that being the base. The physical stuff isn't even a part of it. Again, that's an attraction. That's a lust. That is a completely different realm of love. But the way that you treat that person that you love should be the way that you treat everybody, without the attraction, without the physical stuff, of course. We don't need any groping going around.
Can I read you one more "Love is patient, love is kind"
Sure.
translation? I'll leave all the beginning and end off, and I'll stick with the good stuff. This is the Passion Translation. It says, "Love is large and incredibly patient. Love is gentle and consistently kind to all. It refuses to be jealous when blessings come to someone else. Love does not brag about one's achievements nor inflate its own importance. Love does not traffic in shame and disrespect, nor selfishly seek its own honor. Love is not easily irritated or quick to take offense. Love joyfully.
I love you every week during the show, Mike.
What?
I love you every week during the show.
That's awesome. Thanks. Love joyfully celebrates honesty, finds no delight in what is wrong. Love is a safe place of shelter, for it never stops believing the best for others. Love never takes failure as defeat, for it never gives up." I just thought that was a really cool.
It's a good translation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Years ago, I had this crush on a friend of mine, and he was completely oblivious to it. We were very good friends, and someone said to me, well, why don't you say something? Why don't you do something? And I said, because I don't think that his feelings are mutual, and I want him to be happy with or without me. And my girlfriend who I was talking to this about, she said, wow, that's actually love. And it totally took me back, because that was kind of like the first recognition of me learning to love. And it had nothing to do with, again, the physical nature of it. Yes, I was attracted to him, but what meant more than anything to me was his happiness. It didn't matter if he felt the same way about me. It didn't matter if we ever got together. It was that I wanted him to be happy. I wanted the best for him. And just that little recognition taught me more than I ever learned in the church. Just that little, you're doing this right. This is the loving, this is what you're supposed to be doing in the loving way. Um, Got me on the, okay, now I kind of know how to do this. It's not those selfish things. You can, I mean, and now I tell everybody, my friends online, or I love you. I posted something today about soulmates. I don't believe that soulmates are strictly partnerships or loving. I think that we have soulmates everywhere. I think that Michelle is a soulmate of mine. So, it's that type of love is so powerful, but so many people are either ignorant to it or too damaged. I mean, I was both. I was both damaged and ignorant. I didn't know how to do it. People have to teach you about God, but they don't have to teach you about love. But you can totally do love wrong. You can make it, a thing about power. It can make it a dominion, a submission, and that's why it's so important for you to love
then it
yourself.
ceases to be love.
There you go.
Well, and I think one of the issues is that I have met many Christians that haven't read the Old Testament because they say they're a New Testament church. And then I've met other ones that have read the Old Testament, but they seem to only read the parts where God is vengeful and stuff rather than loving. And oftentimes Jesus is prayed for giving the commandment to love our neighbor. And that's straight out of Old Testament, Leviticus, no less.
Yeah.
And it's like, so yes, as a Jewish man, he would have been well aware of it and took it to the next level. But there's a lot of people that are just clueless that there are a lot of things in the Old Testament about love, that it's not exclusive to the New Testament. And people need to become more educated in those things. But I think the church's main shtick was control.
What?
And you couldn't control them.
No.
How do you control somebody? Through being loving to them and showing the possibilities of who they are and empowering them in that. You have to do just the opposite. So everything kept getting picked out of there that was the opposite. And even in the New Testament, it's much the same. You'll hear quotes about Romans, but rarely do I hear anybody talking about, I think it was 8, nothing can separate me from the love of God.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Like no thing.
Yeah.
Yep. That one's a big one because even one translation says neither height nor depth, neither demons nor angels, neither the powers of hell can separate us from the love of God, which is revealed in Christ Jesus, who is love. So, oh my goodness. So these people that are on trips of pushing their agenda on hell and fear and control, I'm sorry, the love of God is there too, because if he created it and he holds all things together, oh my goodness. Just saying.
Well, control is so much easier than love. Love is really, really, really hard. To really be, I don't think it comes naturally. It requires thought, reaction. It's really easy to react and get angry. Love is calm. Love is, peace. You can't, and I'm not talking about injustices. I'm talking about just general everyday. I always say, try to be loving when that person cuts you off on the road, because I am one of those road rage queens that, things I would never say.
Who knows sign language when she drives?
Yeah, and that's always one that gets me, because you idiot is the first thing, accompanied with some curse words, is my go-to. To be loving requires me to take a breath. Requires me to think, I wonder what kind of day they're having today.
But don't you think that's because we've been programmed from the time we were little, whether through our families, schools, churches, TV, stuff like that. I still believe that if we're created in that image and likeness, we are love at the core of our beings.
Yep. That means we're actually good people.
And so it should come naturally. And I think it would, but we get programmed.
Interesting.
I think what you just said, Michelle, is the key. Our true identity. Like, I've been barking this identity thing for the last 20 years because I didn't know my identity. But if we know we are love, oh my goodness, if we only knew that was our true identity, that our oneness with God, who is love, has made us and created us as love. We are included in that Trinity to be loved, not to serve, but to be loved and love. That changes everything. There's no performance-based acceptance in that at all.
Okay. I'm going to challenge you on that then, because why, while we search for love, we crave it. Why do? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm processing all of this. I believe
we're trying to remember. You know how these are all members. They're all parts of me.
So
and we're all part of each other.
So kind
Mike
of like
and
we
I
were
are part,
born
you
with
and I
these
are part, and
muscles.
we're trying to remember.
Okay, so we were born with these muscles, like one of them being empathy. We just need to exercise that and learn that, because I think that empathy is the root of love, right? Am I do you agree with that? Because I don't think you can be loving without being empathetic, right?
And compassionate.
I mean, being able to relate to someone else and, and their type of thing. So,
yeah.
But I think that muscle has to be worked, right?
But that's like
I don't know where trauma comes into it.
When you were talking about seeing a homeless person, I can remember one time we were coming off the interstate and there was a guy sitting there holding his sign asking for either food or money or whatever, which I gave him. But when I looked at him, I said, I am that. I am. Knowing that he's a part of me. I'm a part of him. So I couldn't just go by him and not do anything as long as I had that capability. I didn't care whether he used the money for alcohol, drugs, or anything else. That was not my business. My only business was to give a part of me something that could potentially help him.
Yeah. And that's love.
Yep.
It's not as hard as people think it is. It's only hard because we've been mistold what it is, a wrong presentation. And the idea that we are love at the core, that my identity, which is spirit, and it's fueled by one life, the life of Jesus. That's how I believe it. And if
Christ
there's
in you.
Christ in you, and since there is only one life, there's life, his life in all humanity, which means his love is in all humanity. We're just not looking for it. The light shines through the darkness, but the darkness does not comprehend it. And let's say even the words of Jesus, when he said, if the light that is in you, if that light is darkness to you, oh my goodness, how great is that darkness? Not everybody knows the light's in them. And so I'm trying to look for like you see that person asking for money. I see the same thing. And I think, I see the light of Christ in that person. You know, I had to learn this in a very difficult way in the seniors home as a chaplain. My very first service going into long-term care, and it smelled. I didn't like it. Oh, how long can I really do this? You know, and are they even going to listen? And the compassion of Christ came on me so fast. I saw these earth suits of people not doing what they're supposed to do. And inside, I knew there was the light of Christ in them. Oh my goodness, they're stuck in there. Somebody's got to speak encouragement to them. And that just changed everything in the last couple of years. It has changed my lens, not only for the seniors, but in everything I do. I don't get it right all the time. But to me, that's love being worked out. I haven't perfected it, but I'm getting glimpses that are pretty bright.
And I know what you mean. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, I did volunteer work at a 300-bed long-term care facility that was run by the county where we used to live. And there were so many people that when I'd walk around and just like hold their hand, practically all of them were bedbound. and I'd hold their hand and tell them that they were a beautiful child of God or a perfect child of God. And their eyes would light up. It was like, whether they were 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, nobody had ever told them that. And just the idea to them was, you could just see their light eyes glowing. But going back to what you were talking about before, I remember back when I was like 4 or 5 years old, being on the bus with my grandmother, and I would go up and down the bus talking to people and tell them I loved them. And when I went back to my seat, my grandmother was like, "You can't love everybody." And I was like, "Why not?" And that always stuck in my mind. There isn't that much I remember about being that age, but that one thing always stood out. And so that's why I say that I think we're programmed. Like, we know it as little people when we come into this world and take on these earth suits, that's who we are. But as we continue to develop and are exposed to other people and their ideas and what they want us to believe and what they want us to think and say and stuff, we start to lose that. But somewhere in there in us, we know that that is the truth of our being.
Or it was blocked completely.
I was just going to say, because of
Yeah.
trauma.
So
Yeah.
about 5-6 years ago, a friend of mine, Rudy from Edmonton, gave me this video series, and hopefully you guys have heard of this guy named Bruce Walkup from Australia. He works with Baxter Kruger teaching. He's a medical doctor, and the series was called "What is the Gospel?" And my friend Rudy said, "Mike, you gotta see this thing. This series is so good. It's going to answer so many questions for you," because I was on the journey of discovering what inclusion means, that all are included in Christ. What does that mean? But it seemed like there was a wall in front of me preventing me from understanding it. Even though I knew it was true, there was something so true, amazing, but I could not explain it. And finally, 9 months later, after, I'll get to the video. Thanks, man. Good. I was appreciative, but I was at a low point in the summer, and I thought, fine, I'll watch these videos. And so I started to watch. Very first video, I bawled my eyes out because I realized there was no wall in front of me at all preventing me. I was actually in the wall and had no idea. I was in the Western wall of thinking and theology. I had no concept of something else outside. And then I realized, oh my goodness, I wasn't told, or I was prevented from knowing. And the revelation came to more and wider, bigger, deeper, more excellent. This love of God is bigger and better than we've ever been told. Bruce says in the videos, if what you're hearing doesn't make God bigger and better, I would question that teaching.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I had the epiphany 5 or 6 years ago that I could never fill myself up with someone else's love. And that was like earth shattering to me, because I was constantly looking at the huge gaps in my life. And when someone would do something nice for me, it would only fill it very, very briefly. And then I'd go back to questioning. And then all of a sudden I realized that the only love I could truly feel, that the only love I could truly maintain, was the love I had to give. I mean, that changed everything. It changed everything from again, it's something outside of yourself and you're trying to reach for something, when in fact, if you're reaching, you're not giving. In order to feel love all the time, which I was lacking in so much of my life, all I had to do was give it. And then all of a sudden, I felt completely full of love, something that wouldn't drain out of I called it the Swiss cheese, something that was not able to just flow through, but my own love was able to fill that up. And in turn, I could release the attachments to other people and say, well, I won't love you if you don't love me. It doesn't work that way. Love is something that you give. Love is something that you do. You can't, when we add conditions, it's not love. Like you said earlier, it's not.
Question. Well, and it's energy. So as energy, there has to keep being that flow. Can't block it. The other thing that I think is an issue, which I mentioned to Sherry when we were talking earlier, is that I have found when I post things about love on my Facebook page, not my personal one, but I'm not that kind of Christian one, that people will say, well, you can't ask me to love Trump, or you can't, ask me to love this person that's done this and stuff like that. And I'm constantly having to remind people that love and like are not the same things. Yeah. I can still love you, but not like anything that you're saying you're doing. But loving you means that I remember that at the core of your being, you are still a child of God. We still have that same spark of divinity in us. You're just not choosing to show yours right now.
Or at least you can't see it.
Yeah.
Right? There's an element of judgment in there.
That's right.
And we're still unlearning that too. I think that what we just read in the scripture, we're seeing through a glass darkly, or we can't quite see clearly now. One day we will. Right now we can't. That's why this conversation is so important, because all the perspectives matter.
Okay, so that just hit me like as Oprah would say, aha moment. So when you say, I can't love someone, I can't love Trump, I can't love this mean person, I can't do, that's not love, that is judgment. So when you're saying,
well, that means you've incorporated judgment into the love, and so it's not really love. Then it's something else, and you're trying to masquerade as love.
And our goal as humans is to get to that space where we can just love and not judge.
Yeah.
I always say terrorism is in the eye of the beholder. One person who thinks that they're a patriot, another person thinks that they're a terrorist. Mm-hmm. If we are judging someone and calling them any of those things, it's not acting in love.
So if what we just read, that love keeps no record of wrongs. Yeah. Actually, can I have permission to read one more translation?
Sure. Mm-hmm. I just like that you ask permission.
This is from the Message. Love never gives up. Love cares more for others than for self. Love doesn't want what it doesn't have. Love doesn't strut, doesn't have a swelled head, doesn't force itself on others, isn't always me first, doesn't fly off the handle, doesn't keep score of the sins of others, doesn't revel when others grovel, takes pleasure in flowering truth, and puts up with anything, trusts God always looks for the best, never looks back, but keeps going to the end. So I believe there's one other word, and you've done a show on this, and I think I was part of that one, towards the beginning of when you started this, on forgiveness. Mm-hmm. I think forgiveness is so tied into this, because if love keeps no record of wrongs, when we're doing that judging, it's revealing our record of wrongs we're keeping. And mm-hmm. love is trying to purge that out and let love do the work. It doesn't need your help. It will purge that out, because that's who we really are. It's like a splinter. Your body will start to work on a splinter and get it out if it can. But I think the topic of forgiveness is huge in this one.
It is. And over 20 years ago, when working on non-judgment was a big thing for the spiritual support group that I was facilitating at the time. And I can't remember what Chuck had done, but I told him that he was a jerk. And then immediately caught it and said, but I say that in the most loving and unjudgmental way possible. And ever since then, and it caught on because I shared it with the spiritual support group that I had done. One of them even threw it out to the minister one day when he said something that I don't remember at all what it was, but this guy, yelled at him, and you say that in the most loving and non-judgmental way possible. And that's kind of been my go-to. But it is, I think it's important that we do try to realize as much as possible when we are going into that space of judgment and have left the space of love?
I've got a fun go-to. I've had to stop using it because I realized what it actually meant. But I used to say, I love you with the love of the Lord, and that's it. And then I realized, crap, that's a lot of love.
Yeah.
You know, if we begin to stop and think what we're reading, contemplate each word. A buddy of mine, he's gone through hell and back. He's been divorced. His wife left him for another woman while they had teenage kids. He's going to be speaking briefly in the forgiveness conference I'm doing. And when he told me this next part, because this is where when we talked about we are love, he said, we are forgiveness. I went, oh. Like, holy crap, you know. The next layer is the more core denominator is love. We are love. So how we treat each other will reveal what we believe about love.
Exactly.
So when we see people acting in very harmful ways, they have a harmful definition of love. Everybody's acting out everything they believe at all times. Yeah. What they believe about God, what they believe about love, what they believe about you. It's being acted out. So sometimes we need to not get so mad at the behavior, but wonder, where is that coming from? Mm-hmm. Why are they acting like that? What belief system has caused them to respond in such a way? It's a
or hurt.
Sorry?
What has hurt them?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yeah. The hidden hurts.
Well, and I think if you look at Don Miguel Ruiz, the 4
agreements,
you know, not taking
really good.
things personally.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, would help with a lot of forgiveness. Because, I mean, it's really hard to not take things personally. And when we don't, there's less to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you know, it's just
and just remembering when somebody says or does something that you feel like is being thrown at you, that this really isn't about me. This is about them. What's going on with them?
Not easy to do in the heat of the moment.
No. And I do also think, as somebody who used to study and lead a couple groups in A Course in Miracles, that everything is either love or coming from fear. And when you say you hate something or somebody, it's an aspect of fear. And what you have to look at is, what are you afraid of that's making you feel that emotion?
Well, and it's so hard to rise above all of that when you're in pain. You know, if someone has deeply hurt you, to take the 10,000 foot view and go, oh, they must be hurting, is really difficult. You know, I mean,
especially in the moment. Yeah.
But but Sherry, who can do that?
The pain. Pardon me?
Who can actually do that though? Like, to say, because I've heard that, you know, people are wondering, well, I'm in that pain. I can't look down from that privileged place and go, yes, they must be hurting.
Yeah.
That revelation can only come to you individually. It's not an achieved goal. It's not a to-do list to try to achieve. It's a revelation of your own growth. And we're all on a journey. So if anybody hears that, oh, that's where it ought to be, and they try to achieve it, you're going to fail immediately. It's not a goal. It's a doorway. Here it is. It's a doorway that's within sight. There is more, right? We're not there yet, but I think I can see it. Okay. It gives hope. There's more and better coming.
I think forgiveness is like that too.
That's exactly what I meant, but I was using it on this.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this is an awesome question. What about those who transgress on love? What about those who act on hate? What is the accountability from their perspective, from that perspective of love?
That's 3 questions.
That's a lot of context.
And I'll start off with, you there again, we have to go back to the self-love, but even with self-love, you still should follow. And by the way, I've said it before, I am not a fan of Paul, huge fan of Corinthians 13. But there has literally been nothing else or more talked about than love since the dawn of man. So if you're not a Bible follower, if you're not a religious person, there are a million other things, places that you can go to figure out what love is, and that it's, to be kind and compassionate and all of those things. So you have to be able to be that for yourself too. And saying that you matter some more than someone else is not love either. So in acting in love, again, I think this goes back to what we were just talking about. With love and judgment cannot coexist. They are mutually exclusive. So if you are looking at someone else and saying you have transgressed on love, that's from a point of judgment.
Yeah, it's hard to understand what the context of the question is. So I'm having a hard time contemplating what the real question is.
And because they're in hiding, I don't know who to yell at for that.
It's a really, really long name. Two really, really, really long names.
Is it Rikikuchu?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I know who he is. Spell it out, Rikikuchu. He was actually on the show the other day.
Okay.
I can maybe clear it up.
He just wrote, I can maybe clear it up.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah. Because again, I don't want to get into a hoity-toity, airy-fairy answer, but this boils down to a more core inward look, coming from outside. Like it's like, how does God view us? And he sees us as one with him, as love, as forgiven, pure, holy, righteous. Nothing is wrong with us. And coming to believe that's a whole different world. And to know we're loved by him as we grow in that knowledge and believe that we are loved, that's what's going to transform our thinking about all these different scenarios. It's not going to be an answer for each situation, because you can't do that. This is your path. I've got my path. I have my circumstances that will not match yours, and your response is going to be different than mine. So no easy answer on this.
Yeah, that's why I was saying earlier, we're going to come from those places based on our own personal experience.
Yeah, he writes hate crimes and violence. Yeah, that's a tough one. How does love win? Well, that's a good one. How did Jesus handle it? People say, well, Jesus overturned tables there. See, he was violent. That's bull. He never hurt people. He was the most nonviolent leader, and he showed love. The Sermon on the Mount, just read it slowly sometime. Oh my goodness. I think we got some humbling lessons in the Western church. They're finding ways to promote violence, and Jesus did not.
No. So, my handle on Twitter is table flipper rope maker. because, for injustice, I will flip tables, but and I will also be covering the widows and feeding the homeless and those types of things. You flip tables on the wealthy, the 1%. So
I think
it's one thing to flip a table and another thing to kill somebody, or beat them up or anything. Yeah. And I do believe in restorative justice.
I was just going to talk about justice, because I think, again, in the Western world, the playbook we've been sold is messed up. The justice that most of the Western church has believed is a Roman Greco type of justice, which is about payback. You must pay for sin.
Retaliation.
Retaliation.
And what killed Jesus? I mean, come on.
But the justice Jesus was about was a Hebraic justice, which is not payback, but put back, to restore, to make right once again. That's why he restored all humanity, restored what was no longer compatible for communication. Like we could not understand the love of God, so he did what had to be done to take away the veil and made us one with him. However it worked, I don't understand all that right now, but that's the Hebrew justice, the putback versus payback. And if you blend those two or mix those up, you're gonna have a really warped sense of love for sure.
Well, and for those who may not be Christian that are listening to the program and stuff too, I don't remember what they were, but I read an article fairly recently about tribes, both Native American and African tribes, where
They
when
have it more right
somebody
than we do.
does something, they all get together in a circle and they do healing work for the person and stuff. And to me, that's the civilized thing to do.
That's definitely love. There's a term for it, and I can't think of it right now. Jumanji's coming to TED, and that's definitely not it. But we are almost, and I do have a question, and I think it ties into everything that we said today. Um, Love and light and all of that, and restorative. Could the light at the end of our tunnel, when people die and they see a bright light, could
It's
that be
not a
love?
train.
It's not a train, exactly. As I said, I see a light and it's not a train. But when you die, it goes all the way back to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. People have been seeing lights. So, thousands of years we have this. Is that light love?
I think it's yes is the short answer, in my opinion. But it could also be an angelic being, light, created by Creator, bringing them, ushering them into the presence of God, however that works, because that's one of the definitions or job descriptions of angels, is to usher them into the presence of God. And I've been with a lot of dying people over the last 30 years. I've seen things bedside that are freaky tiki, and then the pattern of it makes me realize, wait a minute, there's something to this here. The pattern is too consistent. There's something on the other side. There's a crossing over. They're seeing something, and a veil's being lifted. And oh my goodness, imagine how clear they'll be able to see. And if these are called messengers, angels, what do you think they're doing? Messaging what? What will their message be? And imagine their ears hearing without a veil or plugs in, hearing the grace of God and the love of God. How do you think they're going to respond? I have a really good hunch it's going to be a positive response.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when we drop the earth suits, when we return to pure consciousness, that is love.
Yep.
Yep.
Joel, I love all this interaction that you've had. Thanks so much.
Energy, love is energy, love is light. Yep.
So if love is truly energy, it's like Dragon Ball Z, where you have the ball and you're like, let me give it to you and you. That might be before your time. You guys have grandkids or older kids? Dragon Ball Z. Yeah.
But I used to belong to a Edgar Casey Search for God group.
Okay.
And during our meditation times, we would hold our hands out and visualize that we were holding a ball of light and love and pass it on to the next person and go around the room doing that.
Yeah, I mean, if we truly looked at it as energy, I think it would be easier to give away.
Yeah, and energy is a good word to use, especially if you don't if you don't want to use the God card, because not everybody believes in God or come from different faiths. I still think it's the same source.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. So call it what you will. And if God is love, God is energy. Energy will never die.
Mm-hmm.
We're energy. Sorry, this hell thing is just absolutely.
And no matter how much I love you and how much I love you, I still have a whole bunch more left to love other people. It's like there's an infinite supply of it.
And then somebody shows up that's hard to love. Ha!
The reality is that the love that's within me is the love of God.
Yeah.
And so there's no way I'm going to run out of it.
But if you don't know that, then you're going to try to muster up love, self-effort, ego, and that's not love at all.
And go searching for it.
Yes, and that's what the church tends to sell. You must love one another. So there's a duty, a must. That's not love. That's like a duty, which, my kids laughed whenever I said duty because it meant dog poop. But it's honestly like this. It's bigger and deeper than we've been told.
Yeah, there's never been a point, even through my trauma, Even through my pain, that I've said, I've got no love left to give. Energy, desire, hope, those things can go away. But when you're giving love, it really is limitless. It's not like
Mhm.
something that you have to throw over your back and be like, okay, I'm carrying this burden, because it's energizing. Because you're using it. If you truly look at the energy, the upper and lower energies, anger, hate is a lower energy, love is a higher energy. When you are in the lower energies, it's more of a um, um, the oh God, what's the word that I'm thinking of? It keeps you going, but then you crash. When you're in the energy of love, it keeps you going without the
Well,
crash.
there are different frequencies.
That's what I mean. Yes.
Well, and when you were talking about it, the burden, I think the burden is when you do try to define it as something or some things specifically. And so you've got like a list of 5 things. And when I find these 5 things or these 5 attributes in this person, I know that it'll be love. And it's a burden to try to find somebody that's going to, meet up with that criteria.
People aren't
And
trained.
what other people tell you should be looking for or
Yeah.
should be expecting.
Well, it definitely runs our lives. We just need to learn how to do it better.
So there's the phrase, don't let anybody should on you.
Uh-huh.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we are at the top of the hour. Thank you guys so much. I absolutely loved this conversation.
This was fun.
Michelle, where can people find you, and any final words?
You can find me if you just look at my name on Facebook. And if you want to, send a friend request and
Maybe you'll accept.
yeah.
If they qualify.
Yeah.
You just have this short questionnaire you have to fill out first.
There you go.
And the donation
With
link.
your bank account.
What are your parting words of wisdom?
Gee, I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. Just remember, when you're looking for love, the first place to look is within you, because like everything else that you might be looking for, it's all within you. It's all available. It's all accessible. Just get centered, feel grounded, and just take some time to really be in communion in terms of having union with the God that's within you.
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you, and what are your last words of wisdom?
Well, just look me up on my Facebook with my name.
Oh, I do have a ministry page too. I forgot.
Yeah, so do I. It doesn't matter. Yeah, that's it. Life's good. Wisdom, it's a hard one. I think you don't know everything. It's a really big revelation. And whatever you think you know about God's love, you've barely scratched the surface, and I guarantee you'll never show up on the other side of this earth with your earth suit gone, look at God, and you'll never say, oh, I so overestimated you.
Let's hope. It depends, the underestimation is the huge problem that I have with religion. So I wholeheartedly agree. Well, thank you both so much. I absolutely love this conversation, and I had some epiphanies. So thank you so much, and thanks for being part of the hour and having this fireside chat.
My
I'm going to
pleasure.
take you guys backstage. I'll see you on the other side.
All right.
I hope you guys got as much as I did out of this conversation. I think that when we know more about how to do love, we can do it better. So I am always learning, and I hope that my lessons enabled you to learn something too. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe, and I will see you next week. Be sure to walk in love as you go. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.